Everybody, we are going to be going over something that has to do with getting deep into the body's intelligence. This is something that I've been working with for over a decade. I don't think I've actually ever talked to Gary about this from Human Garage, which I think would be a really interesting conversation for him to do that. But this is something that I just pretty much tune into my body, usually at the point of pain or injury or even trauma, and I'm able to interact with that. There's no sound. No sound. Does anybody else hear me? I am Ra. Are you summoning me? Hi, Ra. Are you guys hearing this? I know that there's wind. I know that I'm outside. There's a lot of stuff happening. We are in Texas. We're at a ranch that's a regenerative farm. We had an event on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. There's somewhere between 1,000, 1,500 people there. It was really special. And I encourage you guys all to get to a Human Garage event sometime in the future. They're doing their world tour, so they're going to be traveling all over. A couple places in the Americas, probably in different parts of the world. And just look out for the announcements because they are coming to you. Will you be at Unite the Light? I'm going to say most probably I will be at Unite the Light this weekend with Chris Witecki. So Chris Witecki has an event also in Austin Saturday and Sunday called Unite the Light. Are you ever coming to the UK? We're going to have to see, everybody. But get to an event if you are able to. So at these events, you actually get to witness the community. You also get to interact with the team as well. Everybody's asking if I'm coming to an event. How about instead of asking if we're coming to a certain city, start listing where you guys might be dealing with something, whether it's a blockage, an injury, a point of trauma that you haven't really been able to get rid of. And this is the goal isn't to be freed completely of our restrictions, because a lot of times that's our guidance, that's our teacher. But where are you feeling things? I personally feel a lot right here coming up into my cranium back here in my neck, and that pretty much goes all the way down my body. And I feel like the origin of that is in my right hip, primarily my right hip flexor. And that's because I played hockey. I also have an injury on the inside of my right leg, which then has my body striving towards functionality to use the outside of my right leg. So Maria is saying lower spine down my leg, lower back, herniated disc. So you're going to, and you're going to recognize that the fascia in the body has intelligence. It's not just a thing that's happening and all the intelligence is happening right here. We know that there's neurons in other parts of the body. So there's 40,000 neurons in the heart. There's about 86 to 100 billion neurons in the head brain. So 40,000 is significantly less. However, that they have the ability to think just like the head brain. In the heart, there's about 100 million. So we have 100 million in the gut brain, and we have, I think I said gut, not heart, 40,000 in the heart brain, and about 86 to 100 billion in the head brain. If we just round up 100 billion in the head brain, 100 million in the gut brain, that's 1%, right? So that's a significant amount. And the gut is bringing in a lot of our intelligence from the outside world. So if you just think about a fruit or a vegetable, that's captured sunlight, and the light has information. Did you guys know, just to give you guys context of what information is in light? When you go outside, so even right now I'm under a tree, but when you go outside, it's about 100,000 lux, which is a measurement of how you measure light. Inside is about 100 lux, with all the lights on, is 100 lux. So Inside, where you can see, you can read, you can look at things, 100 lux. Outside, 100,000 lux. So that's 1,000 times the amount. However, it's not 1,000 times more perceivably bright, right? So us humans, we like to shortcut in our brain and pattern recognize, and we don't really realize, unless we come across this information, we don't really realize that it's 1,000 times brighter, 1,000 times more concentration of light outside than there is inside. And the important part about this is not all light you can see. And this is where it starts to make more sense, because only less than 1% of light is within the visual light spectrum. So light is comprised of a whole spectrum. We see a very, very little amount. Most of our lights indoors is made up of a very tiny part of that spectrum that's optimized for us to see. And it has no other information within it. You go outside, all of the information is in the light outside. Even I'm standing under a tree right now. In the shade, we're at about 30 to 40,000 lux, which is still much, much, much brighter than inside. I could go inside right now, turn on the lights, and it'd actually be brighter. It'll be perceivably brighter than it is right here where I'm standing underneath a tree. However, there's way more light. 400, 500 times the amount of light right here where I'm standing than inside. Why am I talking about this? Because we are beings of light, and I mentioned what we eat. The fruit that we eat is transmitting light into us, and then that's regulating us back to the harmony of light. If we're inside all of the time, we are dysregulated, we are unharmonious with our natural origin of light. Matter is light that's slowed down. We are a materialistic being that is the most dense part of light. And light is constantly changing. Whether you believe in the heliocentric model of the universe, the flat earth, round earth, this is all a matrix, this is all alien and far, no matter what your gnosis is, or maybe you have a gnosis of all of that. No matter what your gnosis is, the light source is the source of information. That's what is directing and forming all matter, all time and space, I should really say. And so it's constantly changing. Within the information of the light is our ability to calibrate so that we have the most harmony with reality. With harmony comes power. With power comes less of a need to force our way through reality. Neurons. Okay, remember we started talking about that. Neurons transmit what? Transmits electricity. What's the difference between an electron and a photon? A photon is what light is, right? It's a cell of light. A photon, the difference between a photon and an electron, you guys can Google it right now. The main difference is that photons do not have mass and electrons have mass. Electricity cannot be created or destroyed. Electricity is energy. Electricity essentially is light in a materialistic form. It is in a dense form that's bounded here in space, not necessarily time, but in space. That's why it travels also at the speed of light, which the speed of light is another topic which we won't get into right now. The speed of light is also something. So Scott says darkness is the absence of light. Maybe. I mean, if you think about black, what does black do? You have something black. Let's say the pupil in the eye. It's complete. It's the darkest part of our body. It's black. It's dark. Why? Because it's absorbing light. So darkness is actually where all the light is. And that's why we get tanned as well. That's why what melanin is. Melanin actually means, mela means dark. melanin is basically the solar receptors of the body. No, white is all colors. Black technically is the absence of all colors. But I'm responding to a comment. I'm saying that yes, you can use that definition, but everything is a polarity. Everything is literally the opposite at the same time. Like everything. That's why I said this can be a flat earth, a globe earth, a convex, concave earth, a hollow earth. There could be a galaxy, there could be a gravitational model of this universe, there can be an electric model of the universe. It can be everything. So we can take this light concept of white being the presence of all colors and black being the absence of all colors, which is true, but what is the opposite of that? Well, let's take the blackness. So I'm looking right now, there's, what is this, a grill that's black, and there looks like a pizza oven right here that's black. So this right here, this is black. Wow, it's hot. What's happening here is light's hitting it and no light is bouncing off of it. And so when we look at this, it's black. We don't see any light. This right here is white. So all of the light is hitting this. Here's Gary. What's up, Gary?
Pretty good.
I'm explaining to them the paradox of light. Like this is white, which means all of the light is bouncing off of it and we see all the light. This is black, which means the light's hitting it and this is actually absorbing the light. So black is kind of this paradox where it's not that there's no light there. It's all of the light is there.
Light there. Yeah. Hey, how's it going, man? This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's been quite the experience.
Yeah. How are you feeling here?
I'm feeling super chill and powerful at the same time. I mean, we've been working, for those of you guys who've been tuning in, we've been working like incredible, like all day long, and I have lots of energy. I think it's a lot to do. So I love this ranch, Sovereignty Ranch. You know, I love what Molly and them created here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a pond here, you guys. It's like turquoise in color, magnesium, and I was going to take the phone there and do the live from there, but there's not really that much signal over there.
I got out of there yesterday, and yeah, I don't know if you saw, I was all rashed everywhere in my large intestine meridian for about an hour. I went like, you know, when you take niacin, I went and all the way through here was healing my large intestine.
For me, it just makes my skin smooth.
Your skin is really smooth. I like to rub him. Can't let you finish.
All right. Okay, did you guys get that? Did you guys get that? I always wonder what is the vibrational frequency of smell. So smell is olfactory nerves, and actually our organs have olfactory cells on them. So we're going into that. This whole talk started about fascia and us being able to go in and sense our fascia, sense our blockages, sense our traumas, and essentially talk to them. And I'm setting this all up about how that can happen and how we are light, and light is information, and we can travel through this information superhighway just like we travel through the internet and find certain pages on the internet. And I would even say create certain pages based on your intention to click the mouse and hit the buttons. You're creating pages up on the computer screen, which is similar to you creating the experience of reality around you that is happening in an infinite manner, but it might not be manifested into physical reality infinitely, but the potential for it to be within physical reality, just like the potential for something to come up onto your computer screen as a web page, the potential is there for you to create your own unique web page, your own unique experience based on your needs, based on what you typed and clicked into that. Reality operates the same way because time and space is an infinite, vast field, and what materializes into physical reality here and now is based on your clicking of the buttons within your own computer. I'm a fan of real music. Look at what I just posted. Hey broski, I got some details on the blackness of black. Okay, spill it. I'm a painter. Is this the same person? No. Joanna says, I'm a painter. When I mix my colors, I often think that I have to be careful with black as it takes over so much. It absorbs everything. It does absorb everything. That's why people like to wear it. Think about it. Black is the most attractive color to wear because it's magnetic. It pulls you in. It doesn't reflect anything out. So I'm not saying that, like, my invitation isn't to wear black. But when you go to a nightclub, everyone's wearing black because what are they trying to do? They're trying to look the best. They're trying to be the most attractive. So just based on that fact, I'm taking that accurate statement and making a presumption from that people feel like they look thinner, which I think that's pretty much a fact as well, if they wear black. I saw a video, you guys can look it up, it's probably on YouTube, of somebody that has chicken wire, and you can see chicken wire when you look at it, but if you paint chicken wire black, it disappears. Your eyes just don't register it, and the chicken wire is gone. Because black isn't distracting you by bouncing back light. So when you wear colors, you're actually bouncing back that frequency of light, and that frequency of the light that you are, it's being released out into the atmosphere. And I like wearing bright or white colors because that's releasing as much of me, of my aura, as possible, so that I'm impacting reality. It's a very different intention than somebody who loves to wear black to attract, but that's how it works. That's the technology. When I mix colors, I often think that I have to be careful. You know what's crazy is that mixing paint colors is different than mixing colors on a screen. So everything I just explained about the black being like absorbing colors and the white getting rid of colors, if you take like, let me just find a solid color. This is green. So what's happening here is that white light from the sun is hitting this, and it's absorbing, like black, everything except for this color that you see. And we call this color green, or maybe that's a forest green. And so this forest green shade is the light, the visible light spectrum of looking at this that bounces back out. And so this really isn't green, it's the opposite of green. Like this actual object, its color, we label it by the color that we see of it, but actually we're seeing the opposite of the color of it, because the color of this actual object is the opposite of the color that we see. I love this paradox that we live in. You see psilocybin has some darkness in its networks, and you think it's black or the void, but it's really not. It's actually levels beyond the dark, and how dark psyche goes into the shadows. So I think that Will is actually talking about like actual, like he's speaking like in actual terms, that in this psilocybin networks there's darkness. I mean, it's the same thing with our universe. We call it dark matter, and we don't really know exactly what it is. And from a Native American standpoint, they don't see darkness and shadows as a bad thing. They see that as the origin of the light. What's your point? I'm setting up a point, all right? We've got a whole hour here. Can't just come on here and just say one thing and then be gone. This is about extending and looking into all the dimensions of the point. And at the end, everyone's point that they take from this is different. You see darkness is just, I'm reading comments now, Will. You see darkness is just a word not yet explored by many, and we only live in colors depending on vibratory pathways that activate through DMT of the network relating to your life experience of something dark, maybe? Chalk, it says. So, yes, darkness is a word, just like everything's a word, and we mostly define reality from the standpoint and the origin of words. And words are sounds, and words, most of the time, especially in the English language, do not mean what the actual thing is. So like the word pear doesn't actually mean pear. You can't eat the word pear. But in order for us to communicate with each other, we have the word pear. And our language is one of many languages that all have different intentions. Some languages, especially the really, really old languages, the vibratory frequency of the actual words, which they weren't really words, they were more like songs. So you don't speak them like you speak this one, you speak them like a song where there's a flow of sound, energy, and then you go into the Asian cultures and their language is more like equations. Their symbols, I should say, are more like equations. And then we have the English language, which is very dry and actually unharmonious to the human system. We don't vibrate very much in the English language either. There's sounds that we don't make, that the vibrations are missing in the English language. We're also missing sex. There's not really positive, I guess positive's a thing, but there's not really masculine and feminine within the English language. It's very dry and cut to the chase. For what? For direction. Direction, specific, and less feeling, less knowing, and it's just mostly about directing. English, as they say, some people say, I should say, is a slave language. Thank you for the amazing experience. I haven't showered since I got in the pond. Yes. Raw, the time wheel is there in the avatar body. Okay, fun fact. Infrared light we emit from our bodies reflected back at a specific spectrum. Quantum heals the body. I'm in stem cell activating light technology. Light is the future of self-healing. Fascia is very tricky to navigate in the human body through psychedelic exploration, so we're going to do it without a psychedelic information. Your voice is transforming every now and then. Is that true? I mean, it's windy here. The signal's in and out. I've dropped my phone probably 56 times. And so the color black is the phenomenon of absorbed light, but black is also darkness, which is the absence of light. The color black is the phenomenon of absorbed light, but black is also darkness, which is the absence of light. Black is also darkness, which is the absence of light. See, in order to have a shadow, you need light. And in order for us to perceive light, you need shadow. It's like, in order for, if you only have one point of perspective, it doesn't move, there's no difference, it just is. If you have, the moment you have a second point of perspective, now you can locate distance. But we have no idea if there's an up, down, left, right. Like, all we know is that there's a difference. But the moment you put a third point of perspective, now you can start coordinating different dimensions and start making space, and you can start having different axes once you have 3 points of perspective. And so it's the same thing with light and darkness. If you don't have both of them, then they're essentially both meaningless. So they're not opposites of each other, they are aspects of each other. Similarly to you and your higher, greater self, or you and another person. We're used to, because of language, and science, which reduces everything into mechanical parts, and schooling, which gets us to follow orders and fall into a hierarchy. We are used to prioritizing ourself as an individual being, and everybody else is somebody else, or we have ourself, and then we have the gods, which we kind of put up on a pedestal. But the gods, angels, higher selves aren't necessarily higher than us. Well, I guess they would be bigger than us. They would be more of us, but they're still connected to us. And so if we have these ascended master beings, they're ascended, but their interest is to rise with us because we are them. And that's why you would have guides, because you are the guide. You are a part of a guide. It's like you're their hand. They're not going to leave their hand behind, and they actually need their hand to further evolve within their evolutionary pathway. Do you think the same desire draws people to having lots of black tattoos? Tattoos, I don't actually have a tattoo, so I can't really answer that from a first person perspective. So I guess I'm just going to give a humble I don't know on that one. I wear white so that I don't absorb as much energy from other people. Yes, exactly. That's a practical way to use this information. Green is what will save the world. Green is heart chakra. Green is life when you go into nature. All right. Darkness is a nice for background. Think of aura. These colors come out nice because of the darkness. Red is symbolic of the sun and is linked to authority, strength. You always start change at home. Came in the middle of this. Okay, so Sanskrit is written in the energetic biofield of living beings, can be seen in the auras under a certain light spectrum with the human eye or camera lens. Sanskrit also is sung. It's not spoken, it's sang. There's not breaks in the words. It's all a flow. That's why the words, if it's just a word, you add an ah to the end of it so that you blah, 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 ah, and then you go into the next word. Thank you, Lisa. Says follow Ra at Ra_of_earth. No, black is pure. It gifts more power to every color. Exactly what I was saying. I use black as a backdrop in my painting to create light. Interesting, yes. I love how you mentioned Native Americans and their language and vibration and how they meet SHA in trance of drums to meet their fears with dream state in trance to finally face the daily death of night and light. 7 realms, the law of the spiritual. All right. So, back to neurons. 100 billion in the brain, 100 million in the gut, 40,000 in the heart. And as Gary says, 100 trillion nerve endings in the fascia. These nerves are transmitting electrons. Electrons are transmitting light information that is slowed down to the level of electricity. This electricity travels at the speed of light. This electricity has the amount of information correlative to the amount of light that you are holding, which means that if there's a blockage in your body, your intention, your mind, your focus can go to that point and you can start to speak to the cells there instantaneously with the electrical. Your brain is electrical. That's where the nervous energy is. Your heart is magnetic. With the brain and the heart, it forms electrical magnetism, electromagnetic reality. We're basically a field of electromagnetism. So if we have an injury, which is what I was asking at the very beginning of this, if we don't need to close our eyes, but if we just close our eyes and go there, just like we would squeeze our hand, right, without thinking about it, it just happens. Like, I don't have to think about the hand squeezing. So just go to the point of pain and go there with curiosity. Go there with intention to feel. And you're going to start feeling. So, for instance, I'm going to just put my hand right here and I'm going to put intention for me to feel this, and I'm just going to keep on talking right now, but I'm kind of focused on the right here. I'm focused on the top of my forearm, and I'm not doing anything. I just have my focus there. I don't need to put all my consciousness there, but it works if you do. But you're going to start seeing that all of that part of my body starts to open up. I'm not telling my hand to do this. I just put my intention there. And what I've noticed after doing this for, I would say 15 years, that it makes my body go into maneuvers that I've never ever done before. It goes through patterns. It's almost like it's cleaning itself. Once again, I'm not focusing on that. I'm not saying like move the index finger right now. It's just moving on its own. All I'm doing is putting my intention like right there. And I can move that intention. So I'll move my intention into my right shoulder. And now, because my intention's in the center of my right shoulder, we have my scapula is now moving in all sorts of direction. And for me, it kind of feels like a massage, but it's more like movement. And if you guys are watching this right now, just try it out. Just put your intention into your right shoulder and just wait, just be open and see if you can explore into it. It might help if you know anatomy. So if you know what, like, let's say the inside of your ring finger looks like. So I'll just do my ring finger. I don't want to let go of my shoulder though, because my shoulder, because I played hockey, I banged into a lot of people up here. My shoulder actually really loves going through this. There's an intelligence in there that's moving the body back to its most harmonious state. So all of the blockages that are there, I'm just going to stay on my shoulder. All of the blockages that are there, what I've noticed over 15 years of doing this is that those blockages start to get resolved by me just being present within this part of my body. It's almost like there's an intelligence in my body, or maybe it's outside of my body. Maybe I'm channeling something in that's manipulating my body in a way that's opening up blockages. My legs are shaking right now because there's releasing happening right here. So once again, you guys kind of know what like the ring finger looks like, right? We've got the nail, the skin, but inside there's like a bone here, a bone here, a bone here, and you can kind of like guess where the tendons is. So I'm just now putting my intention into my left ring finger, and so I'm gonna go to the very tip right here, and I can explore. I can go into the joint. I'm going into the joint of the very tip of this finger, and I'm with my. So there's a difference between imagination and embodiment, but just for the sake of language, I'm going to say imagination. I'm imagining going through the very tip of this joint of this finger, and I'm exploring. I'm going off to this side, I'm going off to that side right now, and my finger is, whatever's there is responding. Now I'm going to the very, very tip of this finger, and I'm just like, what's going to happen? Because how can you move the tip of this finger? Like, how is the tip? I'm at the tip, I'm at the tip. And then I follow where it wants me to go. Now I'm coming on the inside of it, back down into my knuckle, the knuckle that meets my fist. And then I can follow, like I'll go, where does it want to go now? I'll go down the back of my hand. I'm going down the back of my hand. And now I want to go into my forearm. And now I'm back in my left shoulder. And I can go explore through my body, just like a body worker would go explore with their hands through your body. You can do this. It says thumb to bones. 1, 2. Is this a metatarsal here? I mean 1, 2, 3, right? But, and then you got your metatarsals here. Curious what the copper bracelet does. Jess was here this weekend and she just started making it for everybody. And copper is, if you guys put copper on yourself, so I'll just look at here. Copper is very detoxifying. If you wear copper, you're going to start seeing that it turns colors. When you put it on, it's shiny, but then it starts pulling out things from your body and it starts to turn colors. It's pulling stuff out of your body. Just maybe 1, 2. Yeah, she made a lot of people 1. All right, so do you guys have any questions on being able to communicate with your fascia? Being open to flow the information, the light through your body. And you can go to places where massage therapists can't go. Like, for the longest time, I used to go exploring, like where, and I'm sure there's people that work on the Atlas and what is it called, like craniosacral therapy, where, I mean, that's the top and bottom, but they're going way up in and just working on C1 and where the spine connects. But you'll start to, if you guys do that in your neck, if you guys just close your eyes right now and put your intention back here, and you're going to start seeing your head it's responding based on where your focus of intention is, and you're going to start working around. Now, crazy thing, so I've never hurt myself. my body has gotten into weird positions, especially the neck. Like, I'm doing positions I've never thought of moving, and I'm getting really deep in there, and it feels like I could be hurting myself. Obviously, be safe, but this is a way for you to bring energy into the parts of your body that may be vulnerable to another person manipulating it, or you, like using a percussive device, or you rolling it out, or you digging your hands into it. You don't really know what that's doing. This is you giving the cells within your body, the fascia within your body that's transmitting light. Fascia is essentially a superconductor that's moving light biophotons through your body. You're giving that. That's the origin of movement. It's not coming from your brain that's going to your hand that's digging in. Or it's not coming from your brain that's going to your wallet to give money to somebody else to dig into you. It's literally coming from the intelligence within you. That's what? This is the whole point of the beginning part of the talk. That is literally an aspect of light. It is light, and if it's stagnant, it is seeking for flow. Light is within. It's wanting to move. It's wanting to be a part of the movement of currency. Movement is life. Movement is what creates the experience of reality. If not, we would all just be still, and this would be a meaningless existence. I've got some, all right, questions. Do you have to walk after fascial maneuvers? Do you have to walk? I mean, you don't have to do anything. Is there a difference that you can explain between... The reason why you walk after doing a fascial maneuver is to recalibrate yourself within a very natural, harmonious movement, like walking, where you're basically using both sides of your body in opposition and coordination to balance. And so your body is going to get recalibrated after doing that maneuver. And there's other things you can do to experiment. You can dance, you can just kind of move, you can stay still and create figure eight patterns in your joints to find that location. I was thinking about like the earlier iPhones when they're trying to locate itself on the maps, and sometimes it would ask you to move your phone, and when you moved your phone, the GPS could pinpoint and basically figure out the location of your phone based on the movement of your phone. And similar, your body gets to reorient itself around movement because the whole point of the body is to move. Is there a difference that you can explain between when another person works your fascia over us working our fascia ourselves, using the intelligence within that is seeking flow like light? So this is all back to like polarities and opposites and paradoxes. Another person is us. Like, so everything that I'm saying is more of like an and conversation as opposed to or this. It's not a this, not that. It's like this and that, because every person that we interact with is an aspect of self. Is this live going to be recorded? Of course it is. How do you view the correlation of frequency, vibration, music, and connecting on a cellular level to the vibrational pattern in the fascia? Music is similar. Sound is similar to light, right? I just kind of broke down the difference of being inside versus outside. Music has harmonics and distortions, and it has the ability to influence. If you guys are familiar with cymatics, it's influencing the shape and the pattern of energy. And if that pattern is efficient, meaning that it fits together, it fits the most information in the most harmonious structural way, which can be seen within sacred geometry, if that pattern develops a sacred geometry within your cells, then your cells are going to have an easier time to flow this light information. If the music is missing frequency, or it's tuned to a distorted number of hertz that's not harmonious with our body, then it's going to have an effect that is blocking energy and causing different emotional states that thrive within stagnation and not flow. So when we can't flow from our lower energy centers to our higher energy centers, so the way that we experience life is where? We experience life first through the feet. That's where we balance everything. We move through reality with our feet. It's where our direction is. And then the hips are where we start to organize the energy of the earth and the energy of the environment. It's going through the chakras and it's going through the organs, which is organizing our relationship to reality. And the way that that organization works is that it's a hierarchy. First, you determine with your lower root chakra, your lower center, your legs, you determine whether you're safe or not. And if you're not safe, you use your legs to get the heck out of there. You run away or you fight. And beyond safety, you start to think about comfort and you start to think about action. And that's as you're coming up the levels within our body. And you start to think about connection. You start to think about expression. You start to relate with reality in like, what does this all mean? And which direction do I go next? And then the whole cycle continues over again. That's how we relate with physical reality. If there's distortions in the music, or there's distortions in your thoughts, or there's distortions in your relationship with whatever it is that you're doing, like the relationship with the people around, the relationship with money in your job. You could be making a lot of money, but you have a relationship that money is bad. Now you feel bad about working and taking advantage of other people, and now you're sitting down here in this survival mode all of the time, and you're looking at everything like it's a threat because there's blockages here. Same thing with music. If there's unharmonious music, it's hitting you and it's not able to come through your entire body, and you're stuck down here. You're stuck in survival mode, you're stuck in fight mode, you're stuck in anger mode, you're stuck in you're wrong, I'm right, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm right, even if it means I'm going to kill you. And that's what is happening when there's a blockage of flow of energy. And this is a long-winded answer to the question about music. My hips are twisted, our center of gravity. Are you familiar with solfeggio frequencies? Yes, that's mostly the only music I listen to. I'm sure that's why my hips are misaligned. My joints all seem to be clicking recently. So as I said, bring your consciousness into your joints and let them move. And if you're just joining now and you don't know what I mean, watch the recording of this, because we went over how we can. So I'll back up right now and I'll put the frequency. I'm like in like an alley, where there's no wind. All right, I got fences around me. I've got. But if I put the intention, where should I put it? Let's put it on my right glute. So if I put it right here, if I'm just putting it right there, you'll see that my body immediately is like, oh, what do we have here? Oh, what do we have here? It's checking out those blockages, and then it just starts moving around. And I could do this for an hour, where the light in all of these tissues are expressing themselves and moving around in ways that I have no awareness of how it's pulling me into these positions. And I would even go so far to say that that's where practices such as ancient practices and even body works, it's the body tells us how to manipulate it. We didn't just experiment. This is a very Western science perspective where we think that everything that ever existed is a result of an experiment. No, it's not. If you go into the Amazon and you start asking the tribes, how did you know to mix this thing with that thing at this precise thing and prepare it in these precise ways? How did you know how to do that to heal this particular one illness, and if you don't have this illness, you die, or if you do like 10% more of this one ingredient, you die. Like, how does you know? They, like, Western, we think in scientific method, we think in experiment, trying to find cause and effect, and that only deals with this physical reality, not under the gnosis that this physical reality is the effect. The cause doesn't originate here. The cause originates in a non-physical state. Everything here, even just from like plain first grade language, this barbecue, that pizza oven right there, existed first in somebody's imagination, in somebody's mind, and then, but where was it before? Like, does the mind exist in the brain? Because then you're like, well, that's a physical place. No, there's nowhere that we can find the mind in the brain. It's not like we can take the brain or the mind out of the brain and say, this part right here is the mind. There's nowhere that we can find the mind. There's nowhere that we can find the consciousness in this physical reality. It exists somewhere else. Everything in this physical reality is, and I think this is where it gets kind of weird, because it's happening at the same time that the cause is happening. So it's kind of like I'm speaking in a paradox right now, that there's a cause and effect. We think about it usually as a before and then after. That's how an experiment is ran. However, it's all happening now, and it's all happening everywhere because we're all connected. This is all one. Connection is spotty. Yes, it is. That's the one shadow side of being on a regenerative farm out in pure nature, is that the Wi-Fi isn't blasting us, which is pretty good, and it also isn't very good for Wi-Fi. Where am I going with this? Let's get on to questions. What if you feel a block in your head, frontal forehead area? Exactly. This is what I mean. So I'm not sure if you're talking, you said frontal, so I mean frontal could just mean front, but if you're talking about frontal lobe, we're talking about inside your brain. So everything I've said so far has been like shoulder, glute, finger, but what if we can, once we learn how to do that, we can go into our brain, and we can eventually go into the non-physical parts of us. We can go into memories, we can go into traumas, and we can feel where that's manifested, what the effect of that is in our physical body, or even we can step outside of physical reality and time, and we can go exploring into this other space. And just like we're somehow feeling the movement of some, at first I thought there were other entities. I was like, this is, other things are kind of massaging me and moving on I would just be on my bed just like going around and doing like weird stuff with my body that I've never done before, and I'm like, how does my arm know to move this way? Who's manipulating it? I thought there were other entities. And what I'm starting to figure out is that even just the notion of entities, when we think of like alien or extraterrestrials, we're thinking of them as like beings like us. And that's a very limited perspective. That's our perspective. However, eventually all of us beings, which are separate entities, all merge into oneness, right? Because we are an aspect of everything. We are a cell. We call ourselves selves, but we are a cell of a grander organization, just like the cells within our body are aspects of our whole self, right? We don't expect that a skin cell in my cheek has the same awareness as I do, right? Like, we're in full acceptance of that the skin cell in my cheek has a limited awareness compared to me. The skin cell in my cheek has an awareness of it needs to eat, it needs to excrete, it needs to get rid of toxins, it needs to potentially duplicate at some point, and it's going to die, and it prefers probably not to die, and there's some motivation there. It probably doesn't have self-awareness. It might, though, and it also likely doesn't have an awareness of us. And how does it connect with us? Like, let's say there's something wrong. What does this one lonely cell do? The same thing we do. We pray. It sets an intention. It sends a message to its grander self, which is us. And how does it do that? It itches. It's a little bit painful. It feels dry. It sends a message, it sends a prayer to us, and we scratch it, or we're like, this hurts, I'm going to tend to it. And that's what we are. We can connect to the greater version of ourself that not all of us have like tangible awareness of what that means. But if we can open up that channel, we start to gain an awareness of what that means. Just like before we rode a bike, we had no idea what it meant to balance without our legs. Like on a bike, we're literally floating. Our center of mass is on top of two wheels, and we're just floating, and we had to figure out what it means to balance in the middle of the air using these directions. If you guys learn to ride a unicycle, then you learn to balance in all directions. An awareness you have no idea of, but the more that you practice, you gain this awareness, and you can grab onto the balance. You can grab onto the root. Your root is now connected back down into the earth. You can grab on to your location here. The same thing with connecting with something, that connecting with your shoulder joint, connecting with your greater self. It takes practice. It takes doing it, and it starts to feel like you can barely grab onto it. It's like it's a fleeting feeling, like you have slippery hands trying to grab onto something that's not even truly physical, and you don't even really know how to hold on to it, and you're trying to, it's just slipping through your fingers, through your hands, and then eventually you start to build awareness of how to grab onto it, and when you start to grab onto it, you then can start to manipulate it and vary the expression of what you're experiencing, run experiments, and recognize the patterns and learn to work with it. And you might stumble, you might fall, just like a bike, just like a unicycle. That might happen. But you guys all have the experience of riding a bike. Some of you have an experience of riding a unicycle. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go get a unicycle. Be careful, be mindful. Watch a YouTube video on how to ride a unicycle and start. And what's that going to do? It's going to bring you back to your child self when you were learning to ride a bike. Here's another thing that you guys can do. Start to brush your teeth with your left hand. Start to tie your shoes with your left hand. Start to whip things in the kitchen with your left hand. Start to write in your journal with your left hand. It's going to bring you back to the time when you were a child and you were just learning how to write. Those programs are going to start being active, and you're going to release a whole bunch of memories of the time when you were first learning to write your name. Because that was probably the first thing that a lot of our parents had us do, was write our own name. That was the first thing my parents had me write. Ronnie. Ronnie. It's where Ra comes from. It's the beginning part of my name. Ronald was my birth name. I went by Ronnie my entire life. I got out of it. I owned gyms, and I started to not really resonate with Ronnie anymore, and I felt like I was graduating that existence, so I went back to Ronald, and Ronald just really didn't feel right. So then I got assigned a spiritual name, and the deal with the spiritual name is that you give up your birth name in order to be recognized as your spiritual name, and I was completely ready for that. And so I got assigned the spiritual name Ravi Chander, and that means essence of the sun and moon. That's what those two sounds mean. And so I started introducing myself as Ravi, and that didn't feel right after about 6 months. And then so I was like, okay, Ravi, Ronald, Ronnie, Ra. Ra was the beginning of all of them. And I even spelt my name on Instagram, Ra_Nold, for some reason. Instead of Ronald, I just was like, whoa, Ronald has the sounds Ra_Nold, because obviously Ronald was taken on Instagram, so I just spelt it a little different, Ra_Nold. And so I was like, Ra has been the beginning part of all of my names. Ronald McDonald, somebody said. Yes, you can imagine how many people called me that in elementary school. This has been fun. This has been super fun, everybody. Hopefully to see you all soon. And thank you for the comments. It makes the whole thing worth it. And please practice out what I was talking about today and let me know in the next live how it was going. And let's continue on as one unified being existing now.